Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Paul Harrell here, and welcome back to the program. We have Senator Gary Stubblefield is with us. Senator Stubblefield, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I understand you're in another time zone.
I am in another time zone. I almost forgot to call you.
Oh,
My
well,
wife
good.
reminded me.
Oh, good. Well, listen, I wanted to have you on just for a couple reasons. First of all, it's been a while since we talked.
Right.
But second of all, Conduit for Commerce, they've got their Calvin Coolidge Awards tomorrow night, and I understand since you're out of town, you're not going to be able to make it. But I just wanted to have you on and just publicly recognize, say congratulations for getting the Calvin Coolidge Award. It's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When I ran for public office back in 2010, I ran for the House. First of all, and I had a goal, and the goal in my life was to do all I could to promote the principles of free market, limited government, and federalism. And as long as I serve in the Arkansas legislature, I intend to keep. So I'm very honored to receive that award.
Yes, absolutely. So what about the field? I know we've talked about the session before, but you've been involved in several sessions.
Right.
In the feeling, there's different moods, I would imagine, in each one's, and things are different in each one. I mean, anything stand out to you as maybe something that would characterize the status of things right now in the Arkansas legislature?
Well, let me take you back, Paul, to 2013 session whenever we voted on the private option the first time. I remember that vividly because there was a large amount of sometimes even threats, but fear mongering and doom and gloom and all these different scenarios. In fact, I think they even went to some of the senators' districts and threatened cuts to children's programs and all kinds of things like that were certainly unwarranted. I mean, there was no factual basis for anything they were doing. They were pulling numbers out of thin air, numbers that were not real numbers. And that's, of course, I understand that. That's been around. That tactic has been around since the beginning of time, and it will still be around when we're gone. And that's one of the problems I have with the federal government right now. The federal government, it always amazes me how a country like ours that has a document like no other document in the world can rank 17th in the world economic freedom. That just amazes me. But I also understand after looking and studying Washington, D.C., they're not going to change. They're never going to change, Paul. That's just a fact because of the cronyism and the political expediency that goes on in Washington. Unless you get a unique group of people up there, which is never going to happen, it's going to be impossible for the federal government to stop spending. I mean, it's structurally impossible because of the way it's set up. And the Federal Reserve, how they loan the federal government money and then give the interest back. And, last year alone, I read that we had a $1.6 trillion added to the debt on top of another $7 trillion that was added to the unfunded liabilities. And when you look at history, no other country ever has been in the situation we are financially and come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you talk about the GDP versus the debt, there's just no other country that's been where we are as far as our debt versus our gross domestic product. And we're in a serious situation. I don't think a lot of people realize it, but I think we're a lot farther down the road than what we have got to somehow. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have got to start shrinking the federal government and somehow return state sovereignty. Everybody talks about the 10th Amendment, but when you look at the 10th Amendment and what's been done by the judges, I mean, they've taken a lot of the teeth out of the 10th Amendment, where states are, we've become nothing more, like I said before, than regional agencies that they use with these unfunded mandates. You can't if you bring up, I know I've been there since 2011. If you bring up a bill or sponsor a bill to cut funding or cut spending to a particular agency, the first thing you hear is, we can't do that because if we do, we will lose our federal funding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what good are we? Out of every dollar, I think 60% of it is already, decided where it's going to be spent. So we have control over about 40 cents out of every dollar. And that's just not right. I mean, we've got to get the power back to the people and to the states and to local control. And until we do that, this country is going to continue down a very dangerous path.
We're talking with Gary Stubblefield, the state senator from District 6. Senator Stubblefield, you mentioned how hard it is to get D.C. to stop, to do, and I think we're seeing that right on display when it comes to repealing Obamacare. We've had statewide elections, we've had state, representative elections, state senate elections. The whole country has experienced this massive wave of Republicans getting elected on this issue, repealing Obamacare, state houses going to total Republican control, the U.S. Congress, the House, then the Senate, then the presidency, and yet they don't want to repeal this thing. And even the one that they've got, which I hope does some good, I have my doubts. You have our own governor begging Senator Cotton and Senator Bozeman to tell their colleagues that we can't afford to get the Medicaid match rate slashed from 10% to 30%. I mean, it really, what you just talked about, the allergy they have to actually doing what the people want, which is smaller government, is on display right now for everybody to see.
Right. It will never stop. I don't think it will ever stop because unless the state. That's the reason I was such a strong advocate for Article 5. Article 5 is the only way we can ever rein in the federal government. When 38 states come together and with the calling a convention of states and putting some restraints on the federal government spending and term limits and other issues, that's the only way we're ever going to rein in the federal government. They will never stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are basically out of control.
Wow.
And what amazes me is all these senators, these Republican senators, that ran for 8 years, they have had 8 years to come up with an alternative to Obamacare. And for 8 years, they campaigned and promised, hundreds and hundreds of times I've heard them say, and I'm not talking about Senator Cotton or Senator Bozeman. I'm talking about some of these senators from other states who promised they would, the first thing they would do would repeal Obamacare, and yet now look where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just amazing to me.
Yeah, and I want to say something real quick. I was playing an interview with Senator Cotton and Roby Brock earlier, and I just want to say I have no reason right now to believe that Senator Bozeman or Senator Cotton are not going to vote and do what the people elected them to do. There's just this very strange. There's this very strange divide. It's going unspoken among the senators between the governor and between John and Tom, because it's like, you guys kind of made your bed and you're wanting to keep this welfare program, but we're not really coming out and saying, hey, Medicaid expansion is a giant part of Obamacare, and it's why things are so bad right now. It's a big part of why things are so bad right now. There's just kind of a lot of unspoken things going on right now. It's my opinion anyway. So, but I expect them to vote for the bill. I mean, that's what they are saying they're going to do. So,
well, I do too. But there were some people that predicted several years ago that we would be in this same situation. There would be another administration, and we might not be able to count on the federal government to do the things they said they would do. And really, we're in between the governor is in between a rock and a hard place right now. And, I've always believed that Medicaid is not, it's just one of the worst forms of health care we've got in our states. And we've got to do some, I heard some ideas. Talking to a guy about some ideas about improving our health care, about having a nationwide shopping for health insurance.
That'd be nice.
Being able to let individuals shop across the country.
Mm-hmm.
for health insurance.
Yeah, I'd like to see that little Geico. That little Geico could now also sell me health insurance if he wants.
I can assure you that would bring down prices. And having transparency in Medicaid, I mean, having them post the prices for all their services. I mean, I have seen a range, for example, I think it was a nuclear stress test that I saw, where the prices range from $1,300 to $7,800 in Arkansas. So, yeah, I mean, you've got those kind of discrepancies in medical procedures. And, you know, we need to allow insurance policies to be tailored to the individual, not this one-size-fits-all that's coming out of Washington, and free up some of these medical savings accounts. There's so many things we could do, but the first thing we need to do is get government out of healthcare. Mm-hmm. They have no business being in the healthcare business.
Yeah,
it was never intended to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to get our.
Let the markets work. Let the markets work.
I completely agree. They got to get our premiums down. The market's the only way to do that. My fear is, see, a key component of this national plan, Senator Stubblefield, key component of it is to kind of provide another subsidy, like a new subsidy for these folks who are going to be transitioning into the marketplace. And it's just like, wow, when did that become part of the Republican Party platform? I don't remember.
Right. No, I don't remember it either. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that many of these insurers are pulling out of the markets. I think I read where Humana now was going to pull out of the markets. A lot of the co-ops are failing, and companies like Aetna and Anthem, and even Blue Cross Blue Shield, they've all reduced their plan offerings, and yet you got to realize something: the government is still propping these insurance companies up.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like it's no longer a patient-doctor relationship. Now we've got a third and fourth tier. We've got the government regulators who collaborate with the providers, the insurers, and which to me is just a recipe for corruption. And
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. When Obamacare was first enacted, I've been doing this a lot lately, but I'd love to get your comment on this. Obamacare was first enacted. Everybody talked about socialized medicine, the dangers of it. Everybody in Arkansas did, especially if you were a Republican. And everybody, we even talked about death panels. We talked about the very thing that's going on right now in the United Kingdom with that little boy, those parents that are just trying to get some treatment. It's experimental, but they just want to try. Everybody talked about it. Nobody talks about it anymore, and yet it's right across the pond there, right across the Atlantic. We can see it. We don't want to go there, and it's almost like there's people that don't think that this is, if we don't get this right, this is where we're moving toward this type of bureaucratic state. And I actually think, Senator Stubblefield, that some of these insurance companies that have, like in Arkansas, that have gotten addicted to this federal or this taxpayer guaranteed revenue stream, if it ever comes to full socialized medicine, it will be the insurance company heads and executives that get the government jobs. They're going to be taken care of. They're going to be fine. This idea of, well, you're taking my private company away, it's not really that private right now anyway, and so it's not that great of a leap to think that they're just going to get absorbed and created into some national health organization.
Well, anybody that doesn't realize that the Affordable Care Act was nothing more than a pathway to get us to socialized medicine, a single-payer system, I mean, that was what it was all about. We do not want I can assure you, we do not want Western Europe health care where you have to wait 12 to 15 weeks to see a primary care physician. I mean, one of the reasons their health care is cheaper in Europe is because they ration it. We don't want that here. I mean, the only crisis we have here in our health care system is because we have no free markets here anymore. It's the government. I mean, they've taken all that responsibility. I mean, that is our main problem. Think about it, Paul. A few years ago, they started these electronic records. Well, I can remember when laundromats started electronic records 15 years ago. Why did the health industry take so long to start? And then a doctor spends a fourth of their time filling out records. And, I don't think the crummiest motel in Arkansas or in America would put you in a room with someone else and put a curtain between you. That is not the kind of health care I don't think the American people expect. We have a broken healthcare system. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But using scare tactics like they used in the Arkansas legislature to try to get a group of conservatives to change their mind so they could have a majority, that's the wrong way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
That's
that
the wrong way to go about
really
it.
is
There's
the
been a
worst.
lot of it.
Go ahead.
Well, it doesn't work on me. It doesn't work on me.
No, it doesn't.
That.
And that, you know what?
I remember.
That's why you're getting a Calvin Coolidge Award. I mean, that's why you've been recognized here by Conduit for Commerce.
Well, thank you. I remember one day I was walking into Big Mac during those budget hearings over the Arkansas Works, and one of the lobbyists asked me, he said, "Did you have an epiphany last night?" And I said, "I sure did. I had a dream." I said, "In the dream, it's Satan, get thee behind me." And he turned and walked away, so I didn't have any more problems with him. He was wanting me to vote for Arkansas Works.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, you quoted scripture to him. He doesn't like that very much.
No, that's pretty powerful.
From my experience. Yeah, and your experience, too. All right, so Senator Gary Stubblefield, we appreciate it, sir. You be safe, and thank you so much, and congratulations on the award, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
All righty, folks, the telephone number, 870-275-9799. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Next.